Welcome to the Kaizen Gal Podcast. This is your host, MC. The Kaizen Gal is a podcast about continuous improvement, building the habits to make the most out of what you already have and scale your progress in a sustainable way. Some people say, don't work harder, work smarter. Well, I believe that we can do both if we balance our time, energy, and drive well. On to today's episode. Today is the fourth and second to last episode on the series Rags to Riches. It's basically the story of habits I built that led me from being broke and in debt to being a homeowner and financially stable in 7 years. In this episode, I'm going to cover something I love to do and that I did not want to compromise in order to save more money. For me, it's about going at it strategically in order to enjoy it without breaking the bank. So today, I want to talk about traveling. Now, we've been through a pandemic, so lots of things have changed, and I'm definitely going to change the way that I'm traveling. I already traveled a couple of times, and I definitely changed a few things because the pandemic happened. Flight tickets are through the roof. Accommodations are through the roof as well because everybody wants to get onto a plane. Everybody wants to work abroad, wants to work remotely. So everything is super expensive. But nonetheless, the tips and tricks that I'm going to share with you, or at least I guess the steps that I'm typically following, are still going to be valid once things go back to normal. You can also apply them today. The only difference is that you would have to be more drastic in your choices because the same dollar that I was spending 3 years ago does not get me nearly as far as it used to. Second thing is I am fully aware that for some people, their financial situation is so dire that traveling is out of the picture. What I want to emphasize before getting started is that traveling does not have to involve going to a different city or a different country. Again, with the pandemic, we've seen that people were traveling a lot domestically. They were traveling around their own city, the neighborhoods around it. So you don't have to take a flight. You don't have to take a train, a boat, maybe not even to drive. Sometimes it's about rediscovering where you live with new eyes and indulge in doing the touristy stuff, the stuff that you would typically see tourists do and just laugh at them. You want to do that stuff. You want to look at where you live, your environment with fresher eyes. And truth be told, there's no one in a better position than you to know what your city or neighborhood has to offer to its resident for free. So enjoy that. You can still plan for it so that you make sure you hit all the spots. I know that in Montreal, we have so many festivals. We have so many street markets. You can't just go at it and say, oh, I'm going to go to that place and this other place. If you really want to enjoy it, because some of them are happening at the same time. Festivals are happening at the same time, street markets and so on. So you want to plan so that you have not a packed agenda, but that you really take advantage of everything that your city has to offer. And everything I'm going to share next also applies to staycation, like we call them now. So how to save money while traveling? You have to plan your trip. You know the saying, if you don't plan for success, you are planning to fail. So if you travel spontaneously all the time, you will for sure overspend just as spontaneously. Unless you have bottomless pockets, you want to do a minimum of planning. For me, I am actually trying to plan a little less because I would plan every single day of travel to a T. And it wasn't as spontaneous, but at the same time, I was still flexible. I had a couple of things booked, but I would leave enough time in between activities so that I didn't have to rush from one activity to the other. And I could actually take my time and walk around and maybe come across something that wasn't part of the plan. But I would still go by the plan. So the reason why I say that you want to do a minimum of planning is that because with every trip, there is a plan and there is a budget that sustains said plan. We talked about doing a budget when we talked about managing and paying down debt and paying yourself first, because these are very important. I do not understand. I have been doing a budget, I think, since maybe 2011. And in 2011, I was 22 years old and I started doing a budget then. Maybe some people started before that, but I didn't feel the need to watch for my money because I have to admit, I was privileged. My dad was sending me money. And then I realized that I was spending a lot more. And I did a budget not because I wanted to restrict my spending. I did a budget because I wanted to understand where the money that I had was going. I started from there to knowing where it's going, looking at where it's going, and then looking at what's coming in, and then trying to have a greater gap between what's coming in and what's going out. So my personal example when it comes to traveling is that I spent a month for my 30th birthday between South Korea and Japan. I spent a week in South Korea and I spent 3 weeks in Japan. I planned absolutely everything. At least I had an idea of what I was going to spend. And I can tell you that I enjoyed a $400 Kobe beef meal. And I bought an outrageously expensive piece of luggage. But despite these two splurges, I still managed to remain under budget at the end of a 31-day trip across 2 countries. And when I was in Japan, I went all the way down to the south. I didn't go to the island. I always forget the name. I didn't go there, but I went to Nagasaki. And then I went all the way up in Aomori. So I did take a lot of trains. I took planes from Montreal to Tokyo to Seoul, Seoul to Busan, Busan back to Seoul, and from Seoul back to Tokyo. And then from Tokyo, I took a train from every city back and forth. And despite that, I remained under budget and I didn't have to sleep out there on the streets or to skip a meal. I was very strategic. And that's something that happened in other places. When I went to Hawaii, I went to Singapore, I went to Malaysia. I actually came back from Malaysia with money because I didn't spend as much as I thought. Because one rule of thumb for me when I do my budget, regardless if it's a budget for an expense that I'm planning, buying something or traveling or for my home, I always plan 50% more just in case something happens. And so I came back with money from these different trips. So it is possible to plan for fun. I had a lot of fun in all of these travels. And for me, I really do believe it's possible to plan for fun, for shopping, for little treats and for big treats without going overboard. And the only thing is that these splurges have to be part of your plan. They cannot be spontaneous. If you know you're going to do it, don't try and tell yourself, no, I'm not going to do it. Like for sure, I'm going to say no to myself when the time comes. Bruh, sis, please put that in your budget, put that in your plan so that in case you cannot say no to yourself, you have the money for it. So there are 4 things that I do before traveling, before actually getting onto a plane. The first thing is choosing the place where I want to go. So the place is based on your travel style. Sometimes I don't care where I'm going to travel. I'm someone, I like to go by the beach, but I don't want to stay by the beach for 2 weeks. I like to visit some cities, but I don't like big cities like Paris, New York, and San Francisco. I like to be on the outskirts of these big cities and spend time there. Or I like to go to specific countries because of the language, because of the food, because of a specific dancing style that I like. So I don't necessarily want to visit every single place or country in the world. There are specific cultural aspects that attract me and that lead me to wanting to visit some countries. So choosing that place is going to have a big impact on your budget. For example, going to South Korea is pretty cheap when it comes to food and transportation. It's going to be cheap. What's going to cost you the most money is going to be the accommodation. But when it comes to food, transportation, having Wi-Fi, all of that is going to be very cheap. So cheap, like I want to go back there. But if you go to Japan, food can be cheap, but most often than not, it is a little more expensive. If you eat fried food all the time, for sure, and street food all the time, it's not going to be that expensive. But if you're trying to have really nice sushi or just like nice meat and things like that, you're going to have to spend money there. And if you go to international restaurants, it's going to be more expensive. Accommodation in Japan is going to be super extra expensive, and transportation is at the top is at the top of the food chain of eating your money. Transportation in Japan, wow, from subway to buses to train between cities, it is expensive all the way. So you have to do your research and think about, do I really want to go to that place? And if I go to that place, these are the different trade-offs that I'm going to have to do, because here I'm going to be able to eat a lot, as much as I want, try different foods, not going to be that expensive, but maybe I'm going to be in a very expensive hotel or like a hostel. Same thing, you may go to a really decent hotel, but then everything around you is going to be expensive. So doing your research on the type of place that you want to travel to is going to give you a sense of how people are spending their money when they go to these places. When I was doing a road trip from Calgary to Vancouver, I read through different blog posts, videos of people who did the trip before me and explain where they spent money, what they would have done better. That's what's really of interest to me, understanding, because I like to be in the know and feel like I'm really getting the most out of what I'm already spending or what I already know or decided that I was going to spend. So choose the place that makes the most sense for you. For me specifically, sometimes I don't care where I'm going to sleep because I know I'm going to be out all day. When I was in Singapore, it didn't matter where I was going to sleep. I knew I was going to be out from morning to evening. And that's typically what happens in most places that I go to, where it's actually you as a tourist and as a woman, as a young Black woman, you are actually a little free to walk without being harassed or being looked at and things like that. So I would tend to go out early in the morning and come back very late at night, just basically to sleep. So honestly, I don't care about having a massive room. I just want to have a bed. In other places where, for instance, I'm going to take breakfast, because I know that, let's say in Japan, food can be expensive. Breakfast food can be expensive. If you just pay an additional $2 per night, you're going to have a full breakfast buffet in the morning. So these days in those hotels, I would actually wake up a little later because I would go like an hour before the buffet was to close. So again, by looking at those places and what are the customs, I would say in terms of tourists, like how they treat the tourists and the different options, it also already gives you a sense. I went to Dubai and I knew even before I went there that I was about to spend a lot more money for a lot less time than what I would typically spend in the country. Because I knew that Dubai was very expensive, I did a quick search. I read a few blogs. I watched a few vlogs, maybe like 3 vlogs, 3 blog posts. I went through different websites to look at prices and I was like, okay, this is going to be expensive. And then I added my 15% plus that I mentioned before to just have like wiggle room if ever something was to change. So choose the place you want to go to and adjust your expectations to that place. Adjust how you are going to travel to that place. If it's you want to find a place that matches your travel style, if you are willing to change your travel style, or if you don't feel like going to the beach and want to go to a city, you know that you're not going to do the same thing there. You're going to spend a little more money or maybe a lot more money in the city that you would do by the beach. Look at what is that you're trying to get out of that trip. Some trip I want to rest, other trip I want to explore. Other trips I want to meet people. So depending on all of that, I'm choosing a place. The website that I'm using to choose a place typically like YouTube vlogs. You have, what's that thing? Condé Nast Traveler as well. They have different lists of places, but I'm emphasizing this because nowadays everybody gets the travel bug. And also because of platforms like Pinterest or Instagram, people are traveling to places that they don't really care about. You want to go to a place that you care about, a place that is going to enrich you and that you know you're going to enjoy the time that you have, that you're going to spend there, and that is going to enhance or complement or heal you or whatever you feel. That place is going to match that vibes. That's what we want. The second thing that I do once I chose a place, the second thing that I do is I book a flight. Some people, they like to have accommodation, activities, all of that planned way in advance. For me, in my head, I am not going anywhere if I haven't bought a plane ticket. And that is true. I can have a hotel and never find the flight that I want. And sometimes they have these crazy flights where you land in Miami at 6 a.m. and then the next flight is at 11 p.m. for the destination you're trying to get to. You get there by 6 a.m. the next day. You had like layover in a city you don't care about. All of these things. So for me, I don't want my flight to be painful. So I'm looking at flights. That's sometimes also where I can change the place that I decided to go to. Mind you, at the moment, and typically in my Google Flights and in my Hopper, I have different alerts of places that I love, places that I've been to and that I want to go back to whenever there is a window for me, and places that I want to go to for the first time. So once I know when I'm traveling, I know this is the week that I want to travel because I don't know, like I'm going to have a sprint at work. Some big things are going to happen that I want to take that time to disconnect from whatever daily routine and reconnect to myself. I am going to look at the time, go back to all of my different alerts and then put that date in. And then look at what is the place that is going to qualify because I already know my places. Again, like I said, I'm not trying to visit all the countries in the world. I couldn't care less. No offense to all of these other countries. They all look wonderful. But for me, I want to go to places that either have nurtured my soul or my mind, my creativity, that have expanded the way that I think about stuff, people, and so on. So I'm not necessarily trying. Some places I'm really not interested in going. Yeah. So I have my flight alerts. That's something you want to do. If you know places, now in Google Flight, you have the option to just put an alert for a place without a date. And basically, Google Flights is going to send you an alert anytime they see a pattern of decreasing prices for that specific destination. Do that. You want to do it. So choose your place or choose a group of places. Create alerts on all of these platforms, Kayak and so on. On this platform, create alerts for that, either for a specific period of time that you chose, and then you eliminate the destination based on how much the plane ticket is going to cost, or you just have the alert and then you want it to be a little flexible. Whenever you receive an alert saying that the price of the plane ticket for that specific place is very low, you have the choice to take it or no. If you have that flexibility, everyone cannot just take off from work and just go travel a place for a week or 2 weeks. But for me, it's key. In my head, I'm not traveling until I have my plane ticket. So that's why it's the first thing that I'm doing, because now I know for sure that I have a way to get to the place that I want to go to. That's said and done. Then I go and I look for hotel or accommodation. Now, let's just say I'm a princess. I have friends that don't care about sleeping in places that I can't. Like, I want to sleep in a bed where I feel safe. I don't want to sleep in the bed where I don't know if the sheets have been washed in the last week or so. I don't want to sleep in a place where there are bugs, in strange neighborhoods, and so on. I don't care. I want to sleep on a bed. I want to make sure that the bed at least is welcoming. But I'm not going to go through a terrifying neighborhood and a building that looks like people are on crack in that building, or they are just illegal activities happening there. No. I'm a young Black woman. I'm an African young Black woman. I cannot go to places like that because I am the demographic that is the most taxed, that is the most harassed around the world. So I am not doing that. Then booking hotels, Airbnb. To book my hotel, I typically look at, how do you call this? Hotels.com, because I am part of the loyalty program there. And I think I mentioned that last time in the previous episode that I got free nights from them. I'm using booking.com and I am using Expedia. Air Miles and Aeroplan, they both have a platform where you can book plane tickets and hotel together or separately. I'm using that as well because if I have to pay, I want to get some miles back, or sometimes I can use my miles to pay for part of the night. So super key. Choose your place, buy your plane ticket, and then choose where you're going to sleep. Once you have those three things done, really now it's the trip is your oyster, or the place that you're going at is your oyster. Now, what I would do is typically, now that I have done this, I bought the plane ticket, I bought the hotel. I'm combining the two, looking at the amount that I get. And then based on that, I'm going to say, okay, let's say typically what I do is I try and save $150 per month for traveling. And so what I would do for me is typically my plane ticket and my hotel, the maximum that they can be is 15% above my mortgage. I don't care where I'm going, my hotel and my flight have to be maximum 15% above my mortgage because I have a mortgage to pay. I have bills to pay. And in my budget, I have a section for everyday spending. I have a section for essential spending. And I have a section for pivotal, critical spending that if I don't pay, I'm going to have creditor or debitors coming to me. So yeah, based on those amounts and the time that I'm going to spend, that I decided to spend either in a specific place, I'm doing a little calculation to give me an estimate of the budget, like the total budget of the trip. And then I shave off the flight, I shave off the hotel or accommodation. So you already see, for me, even though I'm trying to save money, but I'm also trying to keep as much money as part of my travel budget for activities and restaurants and shopping. So it's in my interest to find an interesting flight, like a flight that I actually want to take and that it's not going to cost me an arm. Same thing for the hotel. It really drives me to look for deals online, and I have always found deals. I have slept in 5-star hotels where people cut your meat for you, like paying the same price, the same nightly rate that I have paid in other places for 3-star hotel. So you want to have a budget like that where you shave off the flight, you shave off the hotel, and this is going to give you the amount that you can spend on hotel, on food, on shopping, and things like that. How I split that up even further is I do have my budget. And so I take, you're going to think I'm crazy, but for me, it really helps me to have a sense of what I'm going to spend. And sometimes it happens that I'm increasing my travel budget because I see that I'm going to be tight in specific categories. So what I do is I look at my extra expenses on a daily basis or my everyday expenses, and I take the same percentage that each category represent and reflect that in my travel. For instance, there's 31 days in a month. So let's say I typically spend $310 per month on restaurant, except that for my trip, I'm only going for a week. So I know that based on that, I'm going to spend 7 days. So my budget should be $70 because I am in the habit of spending $10 per day. So I would write down $70 for food for restaurants. And I'm like, okay, coffee shops, this is how much I want to spend. So I do all of these categories. And again, these categories, they serve as guide because at the end of it, you're going to have an amount, and this is the amount that you're going to work with, meaning that on some days when I travel, let's say I'm not very hungry, or I'm particularly hungry, or I want to eat something specific. I'm going to go to a place where I know instead of spending $75 for that meal, I'm going to spend $200. So if I'm spending that $200, you better believe it means that the additional $125 is being taken away from another place. It means that maybe if I had planned to go on an helicopter ride, I am not going on the helicopter ride, or I'm changing it. It's like instead of going for that company, I'm going to go to that other company, or instead of getting on an helicopter ride, I'm going to go on the boat ride, because the boat ride is going to cost me maybe $75 instead of $150. So like that budget gives me a framework. So you want to split that. It's just like guide. I hope I'm not making it sound complicated, but to give you a sense of, you want to have those guidelines. You want to have those goalposts of what is it that you are aiming for. I am aiming to spend $1,500 for that trip. Whatever happens, I am going to move things around to make sure that I'm not spending that money. I'm not spending more than that. And so you want to be able to just have a good time, but move things along. If you know you don't want to have coffee, you don't want to have these things, you can allocate that same dollar to another category that you know, like, oh, when I go to South Korea, I like to do coffee shop hopping. So it means that a lot of my budget for restaurants is going to actually be dedicated to coffee shops, because they cost the same amount as restaurant, and sometimes they're a little more expensive. So I'm going to spend a big chunk of my restaurant part into my coffee part. But I know it, like, because I know it, I can shuffle things and I am not being caught by surprise. So you book your place, you choose the place, you book your flight, you book the accommodation. From the daily budget that you have, you are able to replicate or reflect that upon a potential budget for your trip based on how many days you're going to spend there in that place, and also what you are comfortable spending, or what your budget allows you to spend. And you're shaving things off, you're moving things around from category to categories based on what is the most important or most expensive in the place that you're going to travel to. So now you have your categories. Now it's approximately how you're going to spend that money. Now it's like, where are you going to spend it? You know how, but where? What are the places that are really worth it? Quick story, like story time. On the $400 Kobe beef meal that I had in the city of Kobe, actually pronounced Kobe. So my friend told me that when he went to Japan, he went to that restaurant that was just by the train station. He had the best Kobe beef there, and that I should try it. I look at the price and I was like, freak, this thing is like $300, like $350, $380. And he's like, you have to take like the full on meal. I didn't take the full on meal, which was like $700. I was like, no, but we wanted to have at least like starter and the main meal where the guy was cooking the beef in front of you and some dessert. Because I knew I was going to spend that money on that beef, even as I was doing my budget, I had a category for it. That was the Kobe excursion, because I had to take a train from, was it Kyoto or Osaka? One of the two. I had to take the train from there to Kobe. And then Kobe, thank God, the restaurant was just by the train station. I went there. I had my meal, was amazing. Almost cried tears of joy. It was so good. And I went back to the city. So I had planned for it, and it was part of my budget, the whole budget for the whole trip. So I planned for it. And so I asked my friend for all of the different recommendations of places to go. I watched a couple of vlogs of Japanese people living in Japan, or people like foreigners living in Japan. And I watched for the specific cities that I wanted to go to. Mind you, I did go to 11 cities in 21 days or 7. I don't remember, but a lot. And so knowing that I didn't have a lot of time in each city, I really wanted to make sure that I was hitting all the nice spots, not the touristy spots, but the interesting spots, like the small restaurants that only the locals know about and things like that. So I did a lot of research, because I am going to spend that money and I want my money to be worth it. I want whatever I'm spending money on to be worth it. So I'm doing research, going to the smallest museums, going to places that are really off the beaten path. That was important for me. I didn't go to the countryside because you really need to know a bit more Japanese than I did, but I had an Excel sheet with every day of my trip on that Excel sheet. 31 days. I had one tab for South Korea, one tab for Seoul, one tab for Busan, and then one tab for Seoul when I came back, and then one tab per city. I didn't have like times of when I was going to go to specific places, but I had the list of places that I wanted to hit during that day. So that it gives me the flexibility of when I was like waking up in the morning. It's okay, if I have a lot, I'm going to wake up earlier. If I don't have a lot today, I'm going to take my time and only leave the hotel about 11 a.m. or sometimes even 1 p.m. And then based on where the hotel was and the different places I wanted to go to, I would actually look and say, okay, I'm going to start with that place. But the goal was that I was to hit all of those spots. If not the day of, it would have to be the next day. So that really helped me to whenever, like sometimes I had downtimes because I was like, oh, you know what? I don't want to go to that museum just yet. Let me just walk around. I would walk around, go to a coffee shop. I would sit there for an hour and a half, look at time pass, look people watching, inventing the lives that they may be living in South Korea or in Japan or in Singapore. And then I would be like, okay, let's get moving. And I would go to another place. But I had specific ideas of where I wanted to go so that I wasn't like looking. And also because I didn't know, I had bought a pocket Wi-Fi, but I didn't know how efficient it was going to be. And it was very efficient, but I had an idea. So like for all of my trips, I have either Excel sheets or I have PowerPoints that I am creating as I'm planning for my trip because it also helps me to get excited. I take screenshots of places or screenshots of food that I want to try, and all of that allows me to, when I am in the city that I'm visiting or the country that I'm visiting, and I'm like, okay, today I don't know how I feel. Like, I don't know if I want to go to the beach or I don't know if I want to go to that place. And I remember, hey, I actually search for that specific place. I go back to my notes. I read about the places and the notes that I put, the type of things to look out for. And I'm like, oh, okay, you know what? I'm going to go to this other place. But this really helped me to choose where to eat. It helps me to choose where to spend my time. It helps me to choose where and how to spend money. Like when you go to cities like Kyoto, in Kyoto, you have so many different shops. You could buy everything. But then if you know that the specific shop that is selling that specific, I don't know, spoon or these specific bowls that you like, to wait the next day, for instance. Or you know that, okay, I'm in Tokyo and I want to go to Kyoto, but I want to buy from that specific shop, but the shop only opens in a week, or the shop only opens 2 days a week. So it means that when you're going to plan your train to go to Kyoto on the days that the shop is open. You're not going to have surprises of getting to a place, getting to a city, and just to find out that the place that you wanted to see so badly was closed. So that was the way that I plan. And again, I'm telling you, booking your flight first, I saved hundreds, not just like dozens of dollars. I saved hundreds. And by hundreds, it's like $300, $400 by just buying my plane ticket. As soon as I know that I'm traveling on that date, I'm booking a flight. And then I'm booking the hotel and I'm saving money there. And then I'm looking at places. I'm asking friends, colleagues. I'm asking family. By asking people, they even ask people that they knew and ask them, hey, I have a colleague, I have a friend who's going to that place. You've been there or you live there. Can you help? And people would help me as well. All of these things, planning my trips like that really helped me save hundreds, thousands of dollars over the years, so that when I travel, it's never like a sacrifice. It doesn't feel like a sacrifice because it's part of my 1-year budget plan, which means that by the beginning of the year, by January 1st, I've already planned to save money for future travels that are going to happen during the year. And it means that even if I don't know the places where I'm going to go to, I know when I want to travel. So this is also part of my budget planning for the year, and then I review it. And yeah, it really helped me to do that so that travel is not a surprise. I have traveled by surprise in the past. And that's where like I spent so much money. Like when sometimes you don't have the choice. Like when my grandma passed away, I had to go home, and a plane ticket that I would have paid like maybe $1,400, I paid $2,500 for it. But I needed to be there like really, really as fast as possible. So sometimes you just don't have a choice. But when you do, I'm asking you to plan. It's really going to help you save money. And there's a sense of freedom that you get in planning where you know that you've already, like, you saved the money, or you put the money aside to really enjoy your time, and you're not going to have surprises. And even if you have surprises, you have that 15% extra that you plan for. So that when you say no to yourself, either in everyday life or on vacation, you know why you are saying no to yourself. It's not just to be good, to be a good person, or to be wise. You're saying no because you know that money has a job. That money is supposed to be spent in that restaurant. So you're not going to spend it in a coffee shop because that money has a goal. That money has a job to do. And I think that's something that a lot of personal finances gurus or experts are saying. Every dollar that you spend has to have a job. And once that dollar has a job, you are going to feel way more comfortable saying no to yourself because it's for a higher purpose, which is reaching your personal financial. Yeah, I'm talking too much now. But yeah, that was it for me today, and all about planning your trip so that you can travel smarter. I have templates of my trips for Hawaii. I have templates of my trip to Japan, to South Korea. I have templates. Do I have templates for China? Maybe I do. I would have to look for it. I have templates for Malaysia. No, Malaysia, I was like, I had a budget, and I was like, I'm going to go as far as my budget takes me. I'm going to do as many things as my budget allows me to do. Once I'm done, I'm going back home. So yeah, I do have templates that I can share with you on the different things, how I plan, what it looks like for me to plan, to calculate how much money I'm going to spend. I can do that. Just let me know. But all in all, I hope that you found that episode helpful and insightful. If you have questions or topics you would like me to address, email me at the email address in the description box or the show notes. Last but not least, leave your 5-star review or 4-star review if you want, anywhere you're listening to the podcast. I am absolutely everywhere. If you search for the Kaizen Gal Podcast, you should be able to find the podcast there. It has the same name across the board. That was it. I'm taking my breath. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate your time. I do not take it for granted. And if you have any question, again, email me. I'll be happy to keep the conversation going. On that note, take care. Bye. That's it for me today. I hope you found that episode helpful and insightful. If you have questions or topics you'd like me to address, email me at the email address in the description box. And last but not least, leave your 5-star review anywhere you are listening. It really encourages me. I wish you, wherever you are, to be well, and I will talk to you next time.